Teacher's so nice, my daughter giggled, hugging her. That night I found a bomb in her backpack. Cops said my husband was involved. Now he's gone. I was staring at the gentle light filtering in through the office window as I shut down my work computer on a springtime afternoon in Philadelphia's mainline area, where new growth was appearing on the trees. The clock read 3 p.m., and I whispered to myself, time to go get Emily. Cutting out of the PR firm's office before the usual quitting time was something I did every day so that I could go retrieve my daughter from daycare. My coworkers knew about my schedule and would frequently say, "Give Emily our love." Even though managing press releases and handling crisis situations for big companies was difficult, my boss was always understanding when it came to my need for childcare. As a result, I made sure to get everything finished by the due dates. Even at 32, I found myself constantly working to juggle the responsibilities of work and taking care of Emily, but seeing my 4-year-old smile erased all the tiredness I felt. I'd been married to James for 7 years. We'd met while we were in college. He seemed like the perfect husband and dad on the outside, working as a manager at an IT business. The Bright Horizon daycare was just a 15-minute drive. It was a great childcare center, and I had picked it especially because I was in agreement with the director's ideas about how children should be educated. Every Sunday, Emily would attend Sunday school with her daycare friends at church to learn Bible stories. When I got there, Maria Thompson, a young teacher, was waiting for me at the front door, like she always did. At 27, I was in my second year employed as a childcare worker, but my kind smile and commitment had gained the confidence of both the kids and their parents. "Linda, Emily made another wonderful drawing today," I said, extending a piece of paper. The drawing depicted a family scene created with vibrant crayons. Beside the 4 figures, done with unsteady lines, were the words of my family. Emily frequently created comparable family pictures at Sunday school too. "Oh, what a charming picture, thank you so much." At that moment, Emily dashed out of the nursery. "Mommy," she exclaimed, running towards Linda. With her blonde curls bouncing and her light blue dress flowing, she appeared like a fairy in springtime. She held a cookie that Maria had baked. "Did you have a good time today?" "Yes, Teacher Maria and my friends found tulips in the garden. And look, Teacher gave me a special cookie." As they were getting in the car, Linda checked on Emily through the rearview mirror. Lately, her husband had been working later, and she was concerned Emily might be experiencing some loneliness. Despite this, Emily remained cheerful and sociable. Just this past February at the daycare's parent meeting, I had complimented Emily's outgoing personality. "Is Daddy going to be late again today?" "Yes, it appears he is. You took on a big project." They got into the SUV and drove to Wegmans, just like always. Grocery shopping at the supermarket was a cherished mother-daughter activity. Emily sat in the shopping cart, talking and pointing at different items joyfully. I loved being in the bakery, my gaze lighting up as I selected everything for the cookies that everyone at the church potlucks on Sundays always raved about. On the drive back from the grocery store, after getting stuff for our dinner, I was lost in my thoughts. It was undeniable. James had been acting strange lately. He was hard to get a hold of on his phone, and he kept brushing things off with the explanation that he was swamped at work. Just last Sunday, he skipped church entirely, claiming he had to attend an important meeting. We typically never missed a service, though. We went. We were a family, and people around the neighborhood saw us as good people. I figured he must be managing some big project. I tried to reassure myself, and I pulled the car into the garage of our home in the quiet neighborhood. As usual, Mrs. Johnson waved warmly from the front yard as she tended to her flowers. The following day, I left work early, like I always did, and drove to the daycare. The local news anchor on the car radio was delivering the weekend weather update. I smiled at the announcer's statement that we were supposed to have excellent weather for the Easter service coming up this weekend. When I got to the Bright Horizons parking lot, I observed more cars than normal. "Oh, that's right, there's a PTA board meeting happening today," I recalled. I was supposed to be talking about getting ready for the spring festival coming up next month with the other moms from Emily's class. When I entered, Maria Thompson wasn't around, which was unusual, and in her place was Director Grace Wilson. "Oh, Linda," she said. I felt bad because Maria wasn't feeling well, so she left early today. "I bet you're here to pick up Emily, correct?" I was a little worried when I heard this. I called out, "Emily, your mom is here," and like always, she came running out of the nursery room. She had on her light blue dress today with that pink ribbon she always loves. Emily rushed towards me, her arms wide open, and her yellow backpack was bouncing against her back. I asked if she had a good day. "Yes," she replied. But Maria, the teacher, had to leave because she didn't feel well. I said a silent wish that she felt better quickly. The PTA board meeting wrapped up in about a half hour, and we finalized the bake sale plans for the spring festival. I was designated to make my lemon cookies since everyone loved them last year. We drove to Wegmans just like we always do. In the backseat, Emily talked excitedly about her day at daycare, how she played pretend with her friends and how her rainbow drawing got compliments. Then Emily's voice changed all of a sudden. "Oh, Mama, something weird is in my backpack." Peeking in the rearview mirror, I watched Emily opening up her yellow backpack. "What kind of thing?" I asked. "Like a brown box," she responded. "It's not mine." My heart skipped a beat. I had no idea what was in her bag, and it was a brown box of all things. "Emily, close your bag for now," I instructed. "Mama will look at it when we get home." Once we were home, I told Emily to watch TV while I checked the contents of the backpack in the kitchen. Sure enough, there it was, a brown package that I didn't recognize. A nondescript box arrived, covered only in plain brown paper, and there wasn't any name of who it was or who sent it. The size was just a little bigger than a paperback book. When I lifted it, it felt surprisingly heavy. I gave it a little shake, and I could feel something shifting around inside. Upon closer examination, I saw the paper was ripped slightly on one corner, and I could see a hint of something black inside. A wave of icy fear washed over me right then. My husband wasn't answering his cell phone, and he hadn't responded to my voice messages. I thought about calling the police, but I was concerned about overreacting and upsetting Emily without having any real proof of anything. Ultimately, I decided to encase the package in several layers of newspaper and hide it away in the back of the storage room. That night, I found it hard to sleep. As I looked at Emily, sleeping peacefully next to me, I considered a lot of things that it could be. Maybe it was just a mistake. However, why wasn't there any name or sender? Why hadn't anyone at the daycare noticed it? Also, why had Maria left so early? At last, my husband got home after 1 a.m. He looked exhausted, and he just said, "I was delayed preparing for a massive presentation." Then he went straight to bed without even taking a shower, and when I tried to bring up the package, he said, "Let's discuss it tomorrow." The following morning, I made up my mind. I would toss the package in a garbage can at the train station on my way to work. I decided to snap a picture of the package with my phone, just in case something seemed off later. The instant I tossed the thing into the garbage, I nearly remembered where I'd spotted that dark item earlier, but I didn't want to think about it. It's over. I just needed to put it out of my mind, I told myself. After leaving Emily at daycare, I found that Marie had already started work. I said good morning to Linda with my customary smile, although my eyes seemed to drift around. "You weren't doing so well yesterday. I hope you're feeling better," I remarked. All through our chat, Maria's eyes kept seeming to follow Emily's backpack. When I got to the office, my coworker Sarah ran up to me, full of excitement. "Linda, did you know? They uncovered a suspicious thing at the shopping center in the next town. They're speculating it could be a bomb." Then that black object I'd seen the day before jumped back into my memory, similar to ones I saw on the news. No, I couldn't let myself dwell on it. It's just a random thing. Accidents happen, I reasoned. Trying to believe myself, I tried to get my mind on my tasks. That night, a breaking news report popped up on the local news. There was an explosion this afternoon in a trash can at a Philadelphia train station. Luckily, nobody got hurt, but the cops were looking into whether it was a planned attack using a timed device. On the screen was the trash can where I'd thrown the package. I felt a complete mental block. A buzzing filled my ears. My back was drenched in a cold sweat. The image of the package I'd saved on my phone practically vibrated with a silent scream. Following the news of the blast, the next morning, 2 police cruisers sat outside Bright Horizons daycare. Even from where I was, I could see officers in a serious discussion with the director. Because I'd come in earlier than usual, I parked on the far side of the lot and took a long, heavy breath. "Mommy, there are police officers there," Emily announced from the back seat. "Yes, they're here to keep everyone safe, I'm sure of it." As we walked towards the entrance, besides the police in uniform, I saw a man who looked like a detective, dressed in regular clothes, speaking with the parents one after the other. When my turn came, the detective started asking me questions in a very calm way. "Mrs. Linda Collins, have you observed anyone suspicious or witnessed any unusual events recently?" "Not really," I began, pausing for a moment, "but my husband has been acting kind of odd lately." The detective gave a slight nod, jotting things down in his notepad. Behind him, I noticed Maria talking with the other parents. She looked stressed, unlike her normal, composed self. "Oh, and," I continued, "the other day Maria left early for some reason." "You mean Miss Thompson?" The detective's voice had a slight shift in it. "Yes, I heard she wasn't feeling well." Later that day, while I was working on my computer, a breaking news story popped up. I saw news about some strange things being discovered at a daycare in the Philadelphia suburbs, and the cops were looking into whether it related to an explosion. Even though they didn't name the daycare, the news report mentioned that questionable items might have been put into several kids' backpacks. I immediately grabbed my phone to look at the picture of the package. I was relieved I'd snapped the photo earlier. but should I show it to the cops? When I got to the daycare, still feeling nervous, I saw a bunch of police officers keeping an eye on the kids playing outside. Mrs. Collins recognized it was the same detective I'd spoken with that morning. "Would you mind if we chatted some more?" he asked. They took me to the staff room where the director, Grace, was waiting. "Actually, we wanted to ask about Miss Thompson," she said. "Has your daughter gotten any unusual presents from her lately?" I gasped. "The cookies from last week. And that package." It was all starting to make sense. That evening, my husband showed up home early, which wasn't like him. While he was showering, I made up my mind and decided to check out his car. When I opened the car door in the garage, I saw a handbag I didn't recognize under the front seat. Inside, there was Maria Thompson's driver's license and some new pictures of Maria and him. All the photos had dates on them, and they were from before Maria even started working at the daycare. It seemed their relationship had been going on for a long time. While I was making dinner, my head was spinning with all sorts of confusing thoughts. My husband was having an affair. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was about Maria, the core of her identity. More than anything, the idea that her daughter could have been at risk was terrifying. That morning, the PTA's communication system blasted out an unbelievable notice. It said that last night, someone who worked at our daycare was helping the cops with their questions. Though we knew this news would cause worry, they said they were keeping the kids safe by enforcing intense security. At the bottom of the message was a request. If we were worried, we should call them. Then a number for a child consultation hotline followed. I sped to the daycare and I saw reporters all over the place. There were even more police officers than before. In the parking lot, mothers had formed little groups and were chatting. I heard somebody say that the teacher had had problems at her old daycare as well. She was always so sweet to my child. Gossip was flying everywhere. I just nodded, remembering the pictures I had in my car. And what about the image of that delivery? I kept pulling out my phone, unsure if I should let the cops know about it. "Mrs. Collins," someone called out. I turned around and there stood the detective. "Could you possibly come to the station?" he asked. "We have some new information." On the ride to the police station, I made a decision. I would tell them everything. I'd tell them about that package, the photos, and how my husband knew Maria. But when I got there, the detective said something that surprised me. I was really taken aback when I got to the police station. The detective there said something I didn't see coming. He told me they'd gotten a confession from the suspect, Thompson. Then, the detective paused, like he was carefully picking what to say next. He said my husband's name had also been mentioned. The detective was sitting right in front of me, and he started spreading out some pictures of Maria Thompson. The pictures showed her grinning at the daycare. There was security footage of her holding some suspicious packages, and even photos from her time at another daycare, in a different state. The detective quietly explained that the suspect, Thompson, had exhibited signs of obsessive disorder in the past. Apparently, she'd been involved in a similar situation at a daycare back in Delaware. The document on the desk described that, 3 years prior, Maria had been caught trying to put dangerous stuff in kids' things at a daycare in Delaware. But because they discovered it before anything bad actually happened, she just got a serious warning. Supposedly, she'd been getting psychiatric care after that. I just had to ask, why would someone do something like that? My voice was shaking. It turned out her resume was totally made up. She hid her entire history and even created fake letters of recommendation. The door to the interrogation room opened, and a female detective came in, carrying some new documents. They were copies of Maria's psychiatric records. I learned she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and obsessive disorder, and that her treatment had been stopped. The detective carefully selected his words again. "The real problem," he said, "is her relationship with my husband." I'm aware that they were connected to things even before she started working at the daycare. Linda pulled out the photographs she'd taken from her husband's vehicle. The dates on the pictures clearly showed they were taken before Maria was even hired. Was this all a setup from the beginning? Indeed. The detective spoke in a hushed tone. "It's highly probable that your husband was secretly manipulating things to get her hired at the daycare. Based on Maria's confession, it all started 3 years prior. She had met James online and their relationship escalated quickly. However, when James resisted getting a divorce, Maria's mental stability slowly deteriorated. The suspect's plan was to use my daughter to get a divorce and also to get me in an accident." Linda abruptly stood up from her chair. "Use Emily," she said. "Yeah, by putting explosives in Emily's backpack, if there was an accident, the daycare would be held accountable. That was her intention, I guess, to force me to move my daughter." It appears so. The security camera video that was being shown in the interrogation room showed Maria making packages in an unused classroom at the daycare. She had apparently tried to plant similar packages in other children's backpacks, too. Did my husband have any knowledge of this whole plot? Linda took a long, slow breath. "I don't know, but—" She got her phone and showed the screen. No matter how many times I called his phone, he just would not answer. Just then the interrogation room door opened again. The suspect Collins has just arrived. My heart skipped a beat. I'm so sorry, the detective stated, sounding like he felt bad about this whole situation. We've actually been stationed at the airport waiting. My husband, I learned, was a physician. He was trying to leave the country. Linda's vision clouded, everything becoming black. He was trying to run away to another country. That's when I realized James had something to do with what had happened. Everything began to make sense. Maria worked at the daycare. She left early, which was strange. And that package, of course. The detective opened some new papers for me to see. Apparently, suspect Thompson's therapy bills were covered by James. Plus, there was the planning of the fake paperwork Maria needed for her job at the daycare. Outside the window, it was getting dark. Church bells chimed in the distance, signifying the time for the kids to go home. The sound that once represented the peace I usually found in my day was now sounding almost unsettling. The detective spoke in a kind voice. I know this is probably hard to take in, but would it be possible for you to speak to your husband? James was, as it turned out, already waiting in the next room. When they caught him at the airport, he had plane tickets for South America. Right before that happened, I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking. I need to show you something, I said. I showed them the picture of the package, and then I explained everything to them, from when I first found it to how I got rid of it. And of course about the explosion. This is going to be important proof, the detective agreed, nodding seriously. It was smart to take a picture. Walking down the hall, I was really thinking about things. I was about to see my husband, the man who I used to love. The individual who'd put their daughter's life in peril. The door to the interrogation room creaked open. I saw James, and he looked utterly worn out. His suit was rumpled. It was a significant departure from how he usually dressed. When our eyes met, he averted his gaze. The man I once knew as my husband was gone, vanished. I asked, why? Just saying that one word. I knew Emily could never go back to that daycare. I knew a fresh start was coming tomorrow. But because I'm a mother, I was absolutely committed to keeping Emily safe, even if it meant leaving our entire life behind. Half a year after that whole ordeal, our lives were little by little picking up pace again. Mommy, look. Emily came running, holding up what she'd made at Sunday school. It was a butterfly, vibrant with rainbow colors, crafted from origami. The teacher says it's a sign of new beginnings, she announced. I hugged my daughter tightly. Emily adjusted well to her new daycare and was happy, not showing any signs of the trauma. The child psychologist had assured me children are incredibly resilient. The fallout from it all stunned the town. Maria Thompson was, according to the psychiatrists, diagnosed with obsessive disorder and borderline personality disorder, and she was sentenced to 5 years in prison. She'd also have to take part in therapy programs and would never be able to be employed in a school again. James also had a prison sentence, since he'd helped make the explosives and gotten rid of the evidence. The legal process moved along quickly, and I ended up with custody and the house. My attorney mentioned that my composure and snapping that picture of the delivery were key to prevailing in court. Today's Bible study was really impactful, Mrs. Mary told me as she handed me a comforting mug of coffee. She'd become my emotional anchor since everything happened. Yeah, the scripture, "The Lord is my light," really spoke to me. The bravery to keep going even when things are tough, maybe that was the purpose I was given as a mom. That's exactly how I felt. The daycare, Bright Horizons, changed its management style after what happened, doing more thorough background checks on the staff and improving the security. But Emily's new daycare was a smaller one, much closer to our place. The director had been there for 30 years and genuinely cared about every kid. "Mom, can I help with the Harvest Thanksgiving Festival this Sunday?" Emily asked, her eyes shining with excitement. Being involved in church activities had become a big part of our new routine. Absolutely. It will be a lovely time of blessings for everyone. When it was getting dark, we started back home. On the way, Emily gathered fallen leaves, throwing them into the air and enjoying watching them drift down. The car radio was playing the news about the local police's new regulations for keeping kids safe. When we got home, there was homemade bread from a neighbor sitting on the doorstep. The note attached said, "Your strength motivates us." I believe in a mother's gut feelings. It's crucial to put my kids' security first and foremost, and I need the bravery to move forward with fresh optimism, despite the violation of my children's safety at the hands of someone close. These are truths now understood by a lot of moms. The bedroom window was softly lit by the glow of the full moon. I heard Emily whisper, "Good night, Mama," as she drifted off to sleep, her breathing steady. I offered a silent prayer by her bed. "God, please give us peace." The sheer curtains swayed lightly in the breath of a fresh season. I'm grateful.